also we have discussed Alderfer theory and Herzberg, I think, X and Y, sorry. Today we are going to continue with some of those theories. First we are going to start with Herzberg two-factor theory. Now in this theory, Herzberg he discussed the issue of satisfaction. We know that usually people, according to different situations that they face, either they are satisfied or dissatisfied. Now here we are going to discuss two different perspectives. The first one is the traditional perspective, where here what is suggested is that either people are satisfied or dissatisfied. Now according to Herzberg, which is something different than the traditional view or perspective, he suggested that there is some sort of middle area between satisfaction and dissatisfaction, and this is what we are going to discuss. So Herzberg, he said that in between satisfaction and dissatisfaction there is another area, which is no dissatisfaction, no satisfaction. Somehow people are they do not reach the satisfaction level, at the same time they do not reach the dissatisfaction level. Now how he suggested this model, he said that there are two different set of factors, and those factors, the availability and the absence of those factors is going to cause either satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So the middle area here is no dissatisfaction, no satisfaction. Again, he suggested that there are two set of factors. The first one he named the hygiene factors, and the second one he named the motivational factor. Now the idea here is that the absence of the hygiene factor is going to cause dissatisfaction, but the availability of the hygiene factor is not going to cause satisfaction. It is only going to cause no dissatisfaction. So if there is no hygiene factors provided by the organization, then here we can talk about dissatisfaction of the employees. But if it is provided by the organization, this does not mean that there is satisfaction. This means that there is no dissatisfaction. Now the second set of factors is the motivational factors. Now when you talk about the motivational factors, not providing those factors by the organization, it is not going necessarily to cause dissatisfaction, but it is going to cause no satisfaction. Okay? Now if those factors are provided by the organization, then here we can talk about satisfaction. So this was the view of Herzberg. Now let us take some examples about the hygiene factors and the motivational factors. Of course, the hygiene factors are extrinsic factors. In other words, it is basic factors. Like when we talk about supervision, salary, compensation, organizational bylaws, systems, and so on. So all those factors here we are talking about extrinsic factors. Now when you talk about the motivational factors, here we are talking about intrinsic factors. In level, it is like we can say that it is more important for individuals. Okay, like achievement, recognition, the work design itself, how it is designed, and up to what extent it is fulfilling needs of employees, and so on. Of course, responsibility in addition to other issues. So those factors, again, the hygiene factors, it is extrinsic in nature, and the motivational factors, it is intrinsic in nature. Now again, let us again go through the view of Herzberg. Herzberg, he suggested that there is a middle area between dissatisfaction and satisfaction, and in this area there is no satisfaction, at the same time there is no dissatisfaction. Like if people are not feeling anything toward their job. Okay. Now how to assure that employees are not dissatisfied? The organization must provide the employees with the hygiene factors, but this anyway is not going to cause satisfaction. It is only going to cause dissatisfaction. If the organization have the intention to increase the satisfaction level of employees, then the organization here must provide the employees with the motivational factors, which is more intrinsic in nature because it is more related to the work itself. Okay. Now, what is the most important issue here, which is suggested by Herzberg? What if there is a middle area between satisfaction and dissatisfaction? What does that mean? What does that mean if there is a middle area between satisfaction and dissatisfaction? We have discussed earlier satisfaction. We said that there are different methods to measure satisfaction. We said that we can use one straight question to ask employees whether they are satisfied or not, or we can use the questionnaires and checklists in order to find out in what areas they are satisfied or dissatisfied. Okay. Now, at that time, if you remember, we said that asking one straight question, this is going to provide us with information related to satisfaction in general, whether employees are satisfied or not. But if you want to know why they are satisfied or from what they are dissatisfied, then we need to use more detailed tools in order to investigate those issues. I mean here, in order to find out whether what are the causes of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. This means that there is no direct relation between satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Some people think that satisfaction and dissatisfaction, it is like a path where people transfer from dissatisfaction to satisfaction, or the opposite, from satisfaction to dissatisfaction, but it is not this way. It does not work this way. Usually, we are satisfied from certain things. At the same time, we might be dissatisfied from other things. So here we are not talking about opposite feelings when we talk about satisfaction and dissatisfaction. No, we are talking about separate constructs. Yani employees might feel that they are satisfied from something. At the same time, they might feel that they are dissatisfied from something else. Why? Because we are not talking about the same process here, or we are not talking about opposite issues. We are talking here again about separate constructs. Separate constructs, it means that each one is, or when you talk about satisfaction or dissatisfaction, we are talking about different cases. We are talking about different circumstances. We are talking about different feelings. And again, employees might feel that they are satisfied from something, but at the same time they might feel that they are dissatisfied from something else. Okay. Now, according to Herzberg, here, one of the most important issues that organizations must think how to decrease dissatisfaction. At the same time, they must think how to increase satisfaction, regardless whether those factors have the same influence as described by Herzberg. But here we care more about the conclusions, that there are some measures, if it is taken by the organization, at least the organization is going to assure that there is no dissatisfaction. Okay. Now, if there is no dissatisfaction, then we have good control on absenteeism rate, turnover rate, deviant workplace behaviors, and so on. Now, at the same time, there are other factors. If provided by the organization, then we can increase here the satisfaction level. If we increase the satisfaction level, then we can talk about more positive results here achieved by the organization. Now, let us have some evaluation of Herzberg two-factor theory. One of the issue here is the procedure itself. There was some limitations by the procedure. Okay, why? Because people usually have self-serving bias. And self-serving bias, if you remember, we have discussed this issue also earlier. We said that usually people, if they do something right, they are going to refer this to themselves, and if they face or do something wrong, they are going to refer this to others, or they are going to blame others. Okay, and this means that usually people here are going to blame the organization or the management for especially when we talk about dissatisfaction. And if there is something related to satisfaction, then maybe they are going to refer this to their own doings, to their performance, to how they deal with the job, in addition to other issues. Also, here the reliability of the raters are usually questions. Why? Because again, we are talking here about different types of bias. Okay. In addition to the first point we have discussed, which suggests that people usually suffer from or have some sort of self-serving bias. Also, we can say here that there are other biases and errors related to the situation itself and how employees are going to judge all those factors which are provided by the organization. Herzberg, when he suggested or developed this theory, he did not use a certain tool to measure satisfaction. It was some sort of hypothetical theory which was suggested by Herzberg, but there was no measurement of satisfaction. In other words, he did not try to find out why employees are satisfied and why in other cases they are dissatisfied. He only drew the model or developed the model relying on his understanding to the situation itself without using any of the tools that can be used in order to measure satisfaction. And just now, a few minutes ago, we have discussed that there are different tools used in order to measure satisfaction, whether we can use the straight one question, yes, no question to find out whether employees are satisfied or not, or we can here use more detailed checklists or questionnaires to investigate in what areas employees are dissatisfied due to the work and so. Okay. Again, here we are talking about another hypothetical theory. There was no testing for most of the issues. Also, Herzberg assumed that there is some sort of relation between satisfaction and productivity, which is true anyway, okay, but he did not research. And in other words, he assumed that without supporting this assumption by a research. Unlike other issues or other topics we have discussed earlier, where we said that there is a relation between productivity and satisfaction, but it was based on some sort of researches. Here, Herzberg did not support the idea of that there is a relation between satisfaction and productivity by some sort of research. Again, I have mentioned this point earlier in previous lectures, and I have to repeat it again. We said that none of those theories are totally correct, and none of those theories is totally wrong. Okay, here we can take some points which is useful to understand how people behave when it comes to motivation from each of those theories, but we must not take any of those theories as a model, and we cannot neglect any also of those theories. There is something which is useful in each of those theories. This is the point where we need to focus more. Now, when you talk about the criticism that we describe here we talk about the criticism in order to broaden our perception of those theories. To think right about those theories, this is the most important point why we focus on the criticism. But again, there is something true about all those theories which we can use in general. Now, one more thing to discuss is the McClelland three needs theory. Now, McClelland, also here we are talking about the early theories of motivation, and here we are talking about needs-based theories. This what we have said earlier, that there are the need-based theories and the process-based theories. Now, most of the early theories of motivation, here we are talking about need-based theories. Now, one of those theories is McClelland's three needs theory. Now, according to McClelland, there are three main needs which motivate people to do their work or to perform and so on. Now, the first one is need for achievement. The second one, need for power, and the third one is need for affiliation. Now, when you talk about need for achievement, here more we are talking about need to achieve or strive success and so on. So here we are talking about scoring results or achieving results, goals, in this meaning. Now, when you talk about need for power, here we are talking about the need for controlling others, how they perform or deal with their work. And when you talk about need for affiliation, here we are talking about the need for social relations with others. We are talking about social networking or social relations. Now, those are the three main needs where McClelland built his theory. Okay. Now, there are some issues here that we need to discuss, which is related to this theory. Of course, like when we have discussed Maslow's theory, we said that those needs are not all the needs, and the same when we have discussed Alderfer theory for needs, also the three needs theory, it was, or the ERG theory, it was the same concept, and here we are talking about the same basis also. But there are some issues that we need to discuss here. One of those, that achievers usually, they do not go after difficult tasks. At the same time, they do not go after simple tasks. They usually choose what we call, in terms of difficulty, 50-50 chance of success. They go for tasks or jobs which is not easy, but at the same time there is no high risk, or it is not too much difficult. Why? Why achievers usually strive such tasks where there is some sort of there is no low difficulty, but at the same time there is no high difficulty. It is challenging, but it is not impossible, or it is not very difficult. Why? Why they focus on such activities? Yes.
I understand from their names, they don't achieve, they want to achieve something. They don't want to waste their time with the result.
Okay, so if it is very difficult, then it is going to be like a waste of time and so on, and there is no achievement. And if it is simple, we are talking here about no challenge, and usually achievers, they go for a challenge. So they prefer what we call moderately difficult activities or assignments, where there is some sort of challenge, but again, after all, it is not impossible. Because if it is impossible, then there is no achievement. There is, this does not match with their need for achievement. Okay, so that's why we said that usually those people, they go after assignments or activities which is moderately difficult. Now, another issue. Such people usually they prefer, or they, we can say here, they prevail personal responsibility. Usually, when they are assigned for a certain task or assignment, they assume full responsibility of such assignments. Why? Why they exert or they show high level of self-responsibility or personal responsibility? How can they take the credit for achievement if they do not assume personal responsibility? Now, here when we talk, we are not talking only about achieving the results. Also, we are talking about satisfying some other needs related to their own personality, we can say here. Okay, that's why such people usually they prefer or they show high degree of personal responsibility. We have discussed earlier, there is another point here which is related to moderate risk, because it is necessary to achieve. But such people usually also they prefer feedback. So here we can say there are three main characteristics related to their personality or their attitudes in a certain way, that they show a high degree of personal responsibility. Why? Because they need to assume personal responsibility, because this is their way to take the credit for the achievements. Another point that they go after moderate risk activities, and this we have discussed earlier when we said that they prefer 50-50 situations where there is no simple tasks, at the same time there is no highly difficult task, because after all they need to achieve. The third one, they prefer feedback. Feedback is related to two issues here: recognition by the management, and the second point is related to follow up, and if there is some sort of deviation, they need to have some sort of correctness to their activities. If they are doing something wrong, they want someone to tell them that don't do it this way, do it the other way, because it is going to be better, for example. Okay, so here we are talking about feedback from two different aspects here. The first one is related to recognition by higher level management, and the second one is related to obtaining feedback in order to if there is a need for to correct some of the activities and so on. Another point which is related to those achievers, that they are not good managers. Usually high need for achievement does not produce managers. Usually it produces more professional people. Why? Why such people are not good? Let me rephrase here my words. I do not mean that they are not good managers. At least they do not have good opportunity to be managers. Yes.
Because they are good in doing such tasks which is 50-50, and not all the tasks like this, and I guess they reflect their personalities and focus on one kind of personality. Cannot be without.
Okay, now let me go back to the 50-50 issue. When we say that they go after tasks where there is 50-50 chance, the meaning here was that they do not go after very simple tasks, and they do not go after very difficult tasks. Why? Because when you talk about simple tasks, there is no challenge. And when we talk about very difficult tasks, here we are talking about no achievement. So there is some sort of no challenge. This means that there is no satisfaction for the achievement need, because it is something normal, anyone can do. And if it is difficult also, here we are talking about like we are not going to strive results, and this means that also we cannot satisfy our need for achievement. So that's why they do not go after very simple tasks or very difficult tasks. They prefer usually where there is some sort of moderate risk. Okay, but when we here implying that they do not necessarily make good managers, there is another issue here. There is another perspective that we need to go through. Usually such people, they do things by themselves. Usually such people, they are more professionals in doing certain tasks in certain specialized areas related to certain assignments, okay? And they like to do things by themselves. They like to do the work, okay? That's why they are not good managers. Here the focus more is individual focus. We are talking more about personal focus more than group focus or organizational focus. That's why such people usually, they do not have good opportunity to be managers. Okay, that's why I said that I need to rephrase my words. The right question was not why they are not good managers. No, they do not have good opportunity to be managers. But anyway, they might have the opportunity. Here we are not talking about an absolute result, but such people, usually the organization like to utilize their abilities in dealing with certain tasks, assignments, more than dealing with issues related to the organization in general. That's why, again, the focus here is personal, and that's why such people usually they do not have the opportunity to be good managers. Also, some studies reveal that most good general managers do not have a high need for achievement. When you talk about low need for achievement, not necessarily we are talking about failure here, okay? Maybe we are talking about achievement in different way or in different perspective. But when you talk about need for achievement, we are talking about personal issues here, that I need to prove that I am achievers, okay? But here the issue, those researchers find out that managers, and I'm talking here about top level executives, they do not have high need for achievement. What is their focus if they do not have high need for achievement? What is their focus here? They focus more on what?
Does achievement just related to the personal efforts?
In most cases, in the way how McClellan discussed the issue. Okay. For example, and here there is a more general perspective, more than personal perspective. What other issues? Any more ideas about why general managers do not have high need for achievement? Here more we are talking about more organizational orientation than individual orientation. Okay, here we are not like you have discussed the first point that you have mentioned, that usually they think more about productivity. Okay, they think more in general about organizational, or they have more organizational orientation than individual orientation. They focus more about issues related to the organization in general. This means that they have, maybe we can describe it in other words, that they have high need for success, but not necessarily high need for achievement. When you talk about high need for achievement, here we are talking about inner strive to achieve results or goals and so on. But when you talk about managers, here more we are talking about more need for success, and that's why they are more organizational oriented rather than personal oriented. At least in most cases, we have discussed those issues earlier, that we cannot take anything as absolute. All issues we are discussing in a relative manner. The last 2 points to discuss related to McClellan's need of theory, that usually managers, still we are talking about managers, they have high level of need for power and low need for affiliation. So if we need to characterize managers according to those three needs, we can say here that top level managers, they do not have high need for achievement. They have high need for power. At the same time also they do not have high need for affiliation. Okay, so just right now we have discussed the issue of achievement from different angle, and we said that managers, they have high need for success, for example, we can say. But okay, so again, if we need to discuss the McClellan's three needs theory and relate this theory to managers, again we said that managers, they do not have high need for achievement. Also, they do not have high need for affiliation, but for sure they have high need for power. Okay, and we can understand why they have high need for power, because they need to control issues and implementation of plans, and they need to follow up how things are done by different employees working in the organization. Last point to discuss here. Okay, that this theory, it was supported by good research. Okay, though some people describe it as it is not very practical theory. We understand why all theories are not very practical, because after all, we are discussing those issues from a certain point of view. There is no comprehensive point of view here for none of those theories. But anyway, this is one of the theories which was supported by a research. McClellan have studied a certain population. Most of those people, they were engineers, and some of them, they were accountants, they were professionals. And according to that, he have